Morning, everyone. Morning, sorry. Good evening, everyone. This week's Parsha is Parshat Behar-Bechukotai. It's the double Parsha. And we will, depending how much time we have, be primarily focusing on some items in Parshas Behar. So we will start from Perek Chav Hey, chapter 25, Pasuk Lamed Hey, verse 35. V'chi yamuch achicha, if your brother becomes impoverished, amat yadi imach, and his means falter amongst you, you shall strengthen him. Ger v'toshav, whether we're talking about a convert or a toshav, v'chai imach, he shall live with you. Al tikach me'itai neshech v'sarbis. You shall not take from him interest and increase. The you should be fearful. You should have fear from your God. And your brother shall live with you. As you shall not give him money with interest, and you shall not give him food with increase. I am Hashem, your God, who took you out from the land of Egypt, to give the land of Canaan, to be to you as a God. So here is where the Torah teaches us the prohibition against taking interest. That when you lend somebody money, you may not take interest. And it's very interesting that in the middle of, right after it tells us the prohibition of not taking interest, it says, you shall have fear from your God. In the middle, it sticks it in.
But this is talk not about just brothers. This is about Jewish people.
Yeah. That's your brother.
Anyone.
Your fellow Jew. Okay. Now, the Torah now, like I said, interjects, you shall have fear from your God. And Rashi comments, it's because of the fact that, as Rashi says, Lefi shadaita shel adam nimshachas achar haribis v'kasha lifrei shemena. Bottom line is that we may be very used to the concept of not taking interest, but taking interest is something that is very commonplace. It is something that people, if not for the Torah's prohibition, expect it. The idea of your money just sitting around and not doing anything is something that is problematic by people. And because of that, people sometimes try to find ways of getting around it. And therefore, the pasuk says, you shall have fear from your God. At the end of the day, when we face certain types of challenges, the only thing that's going to keep us in line is our fear of God. And that is what the Torah is stressing here. Another reason the Torah says you shall fear your God is that the Torah will use that phrase or that idea that when a person tries to kind of play shtick and tries to be kind of tricky, and nobody will know what kind of shtick he's playing, the Torah says, you should have fear from your God. I know the tricks you're playing. And it seems that there was a practice that you would lend money to a Jew, but you would say, oh, it's not my money. I'm lending, this money that I'm lending you belongs to a non-Jew. A non-Jew can take interest from you. So basically, it's really your money. You're pretending, you're making up a story, you're saying it's a non-Jew's money, and you're taking interest because it's really the non-Jew is lending you the money. And it's really your money. So the Torah says, have fear from your God. If you, again, because of taking interest is so important to you that you try to cover it up, Hashem says, know that you can't hide anything from me. And actually, Rashi also tells us that at the end of this section, where it concludes, I am Hashem, your God, took you out from the land of Egypt, what does that got to do with taking interest? So there, Rashi points out that the point is like this. I took you out of Egypt, and I was able to differentiate between a firstborn and not a firstborn. Again, the point being that if you're going to try to cover up and say it's the non-Jews, you can't hide anything from me. I was able, Hashem says, differentiate between who's a firstborn, who's not a firstborn. And to elaborate a little bit on that, Rashi, I think, in Parshas Bo says that the Egyptian women had children that were not necessarily from their husbands, but nobody knew about it. And therefore, it could come out that you could have in the house more than one firstborn. And it was Hashem who was able to differentiate who's really a firstborn, who's really not a firstborn. And therefore, if Hashem knows such intimate details, Hashem is going to know about what kind of tricks you're trying to play. Okay, and another thing Rashi says again, I took you out of Egypt to be for you as God, which means to say again that even when things are difficult, I took you out of Egypt to serve me, and as difficult as it may be not to take interest, this is what you need to do.
Was the firstborn of the father, not the mother?
Both.
What if, if it was one of these situations?
So if it was the father's firstborn, it could have been that person who fathered the child, it's his firstborn. So even if it's not her firstborn.
This is the expression of the one that opens the womb.
Yeah, that's by the Behar now, but I think by Makas Becharis it worked by any firstborn. Okay, now, so the question is like this, and this is a question posed by Shimon Schwab Zatzal, and he asks, he says, what's so bad about interest? Like really, why is the Torah so? And we see it's difficult for people. The Torah has to warn us and try to strengthen our resolve. And the truth is, he says, when you charge interest for money, you know what you're really doing? You're charging rent for your money. The same way I can go ahead and rent out my animal, I can rent out my utensils, I can rent out things. So why can't I rent my money? You want my money, there's a certain charge for using my money. What's it any different than rent? That's his question. Now, the answer could be, which is something that we commonly find, that one of the words the word that's used commonly for ribis is neshech. You know what the word neshech also means? To bite. And the reason why interest is called neshech, biting, is because interest bites out a lot from a person. Interest has always been something that can bite out a lot from a person's money. Interest is more. It's bad enough the person has to borrow the money and has to find a way to pay back that money. He even has to find more. And there are times that people can't do that, and the interest continues to accumulate. Just like it happens nowadays. So ribis has always been something that can really bite into another person's income, especially a person who is desperate in the sense that they needed to borrow the money and they have no other choice, and they take on even more debt. It's always been a problematic thing, and therefore it could very well be that the Torah said, "Okay, look, yes, you can rent out, but when you charge someone, you rent out your thing. People, they have a usage from it." And they use the article and they pay for it, fine. But a person who has to go ahead and pay interest, it's so to speak, it's bad enough he has to find the money to pay back. Now he also has to be able to find more money to pay you back. And if he does it, it accumulates and it has the potential to really hurt a person. Maybe that's the reason why the Torah said state that you can't take ribis, because it's too much. But the way the Reb Schwab says it is, and maybe we have to use this idea also for it, but Reb Schwab says like this. And again, let's say there would not be a prohibition of interest. Let's say there wouldn't be a prohibition of interest. And your brother comes and asks you for money. He needs money. He wants to take a loan. Would you charge him interest? Or would you give him an interest-free loan because he's your brother? I believe, from what I've heard, can't remember where I heard it from, that even amongst non-Jews, right, when you're very close with someone, right, you'll lend them money without interest. To a good friend, you lend the money without interest. And therefore, Reb Schwab says that the reason why the Torah says don't take interest is because would you take interest from a relative? No, you wouldn't. And what did the Torah here say? If your brother falters, we're all brothers and sisters. And it's that kind of feeling that we should be having towards each other that would therefore say, don't take interest. What the Torah is doing here, the Torah is saying that taking from a close relative or someone you're close with, when you lend them money, It's common not to take interest from them because of the dangers of interest, because of the potential problems that come from interest. You don't put, or because of the fact that, again, it's a bigger burden. It's enough they have to pay you back the money. This too. So to someone that's your brother, you're close with, you do it interest free because they are someone that is that is special to you. Well, every Jew should be that way. When it comes to this, every Jew should be that way. Any person that you are lending, that especially a person that you're lending money to, especially a person who needs your help, you should be looking at them as your brother, and from a brother, you don't take interest. So the Torah is fostering this idea that we should be seeing each other as brothers and sisters, and from a brother and a sister, you don't take interest. Don't take interest from any fellow Jew. It's all about the type of relationship and perspective and attitude we should have towards each other as fellow Jews. From someone you're close with, you don't take interest. It's very common not to take interest from someone who is a relative you're close with. Well, the Torah says that is how you should treat every Jew.
But this is not. This is reference. You should. He should live with you.
That's something else.
No, but this is.
That's something else. We're not focusing on that.
But usually percentage or what is called.
It doesn't mean he's going to live in your house.
No, but
it just means you're going to give him the means and you'll make sure that he's able to live amongst you.
It means he actually gave him money.
He's lending him money.
He lent his money.
But when you lend the money, don't charge interest.
Yeah. It's not. He does not pay for him everything. He gave him money.
He lent him money.
Okay.
He lent him money.
He's
no.
With me,
he's not literally living with you. It just means he should be able to be amongst you. But but the point is that you're lending him money with no interest. And Rav Schwab is saying that the reason for the prohibition is because of the fact that being that we should all be seeing each other as brothers and sisters, and a brother and a sister you don't take interest from.
But this is rule for now?
Yeah. Now, it's a rule for now. That means if I lend you money, right, I cannot take interest from you. You know, I can't charge you interest. I can't take interest. Now, at the same time, without getting into it right now, there's something called the heter iska, which means there are ways of getting around. There are ways of taking interest, but it's not interest. It's like, again, I'm going to say it very quickly. You basically turn the loan into a business investment.
Well, that's the reason for it.
Right. That's how it works. That's how it works. Right. It's a business investment. And there is a certain profit that is promised from the business investment. And so it's not interest on a loan. It's the percentage of a business venture. Now, you may say, you know, why is it so important to go ahead and have to find these means of getting around it? Well, the answer is as Martin just said, it's really hard to do business without doing that. I don't understand it myself because I'm not a business person, but I remember years ago when I first was looking into something like this, and somebody explained to me now, you know, in the way the business world works, you can't go without doing that.
Rabbi Feinstein issued that.
Okay, so heter iska, it's something around for a long time even before him. Yeah, it has been around for a long time. But the point is, so again, I don't want to get into heter iska right now. Just that once it's brought up, there is a means of turning things into of restructuring, if that's the word, to restructure the loan into a business venture, and there's a certain profit that is guaranteed to the investor, who is the person who loaned the money, and therefore at the end of the day, it is not interest, it is profit from a business venture, and everything is covered. But at the end of the day, pure interest cannot be done. Would you like to know how Israeli banks lend money on interest? The answer is heter iska.
Really?
Yeah, that was something that had been dealt with many years ago.
But there is kind of Jewish banks who
There are Jewish banks who lend money, but they have to do the heter iska.
This just not to take.
It has to be formed. It has to be restructured, so to speak, into a business venture instead of a loan. There actually was in Boston a bank owned by a Jew that they had to. Now again, there are a lot of discussions about it. Exactly, what you have to do, what you don't have to do. The study of the laws of ribis is very intricate, very very intricate, very difficult. So like I say, I'm not going to get into that right now. We're dealing with pure interest right now, lending a person money with interest. That means I'm lending you $100 and you got to pay me back 110, 120. Or for each month, the interest accumulates, whatever it may be. At the end of the day, that's what we're talking about, keeping it very simple. And this is what Reb Schwab is discussing regarding the whole prohibition itself. Now, on this same pasuk, which starts off, if your brother becomes impoverished and his hand falters, you should strengthen him. This is, now again, from the psukim we see that how are you strengthening him with a loan? At the same time, this pasuk, I believe this pasuk of Echazak Debay is the Torah's mitzvah of giving tzedakah too, right? The fact that you have to strengthen the person who is faltering includes the mitzvah of tzedakah, which means you're not lending money, you're giving tzedakah, what we call charity. But it's included in this also. And there is a medrash in this week's parsha that on this pasuk brings a pasuk. Excuse me.